On this channel, I featured the massive growth ETF TQQQ, and there's no doubt on the surface that this ETF looks like a great investment, and its performance over the past 10 years have been really incredible. When comparing TQQQ to the normal QQQ, its unleveraged counterpart, it actually almost outperforms it by about 20% per year over the last 10 years. That's an extra 20% growth per year. So then what's the catch? Why has there not been a widespread adoption of this ETF? And why are some hesitant to invest in TQQQ for the long term? So today I wanted to talk about the incredible performance of TQQQ and then some of the risks that you might want to consider when investing for the long term. So just a quick summary of what I wanted to talk about today. First off, I wanted to talk about TQQ's incredible performance, taking a look at what their performance looks like over on the website and what it looks like over on Seeking Alpha. And then number two, I wanted to do a quick comparison between TQQQ and its leveraged counterpart and show you that it's actually not a triple performance over the long term. And then I want to answer the question, should you be buying TQQQ? And I want to show you a comparison between the two funds over on my personal calculator that I built, Portfolio Builder. And this calculator, along with all of these other calculators, can be found over on my Patreon. TQQQ is ProShares triple leveraged QQQ fund, and it seeks a daily investment results, and highlighting or emphasizing the daily before fees and expenses, that corresponds to 3 times the daily performance, again highlighting daily, of the NASDAQ 100 index. TQQQ has a daily investment objective. You may hold fund shares for longer than 1 day if you believe it is consistent with your goals and risk tolerance, and a big emphasis on the risk tolerance here. And they do highlight the longer your holding period for TQQQ, the more your return will actually tend to deviate. So you remember, as I highlighted here, they emphasize the word daily. So they are only looking for a daily performance of 3 times the NASDAQ 100 with these fees and expenses that we're going to highlight here in a few minutes. With these fees and expenses over a long period of time, you're not going to get a 3 times the performance over a weekly, monthly, or even annual basis. But you will get that performance on a daily basis. Taking a look at the daily return performance here, just taking a look over the past few weeks here, or at least the past week or two, you can see that they highlight the return of the NASDAQ 100 or QQQ. There was a 1% return, and they were able to achieve a almost 3% return. However, you can see here on July 11th with a negative 2 to 2.25% return, they almost had a negative 7% return. So what does that look like over a long period of time? Well, these returns here as of June 30th, so this doesn't count the last 2.5 weeks here in July. Since inception, February of 2020, their return, they're stating to be about 43% per year since 2021, and a total 12-month return. So July 1st of 23 all the way to June 30th of 2024, that's about an 82% return. And before we continue here, I just want to make a comment about Seeking Alpha. It is personally, I believe it's the best investing website there is. They have Seeking Alpha Premium, which allows you to have a greater visibility in some of their ratings and their ETF grades, as well as unlimited access to analysis and their written articles. They also have investing groups that you can sign up for and pay a monthly fee. And they also have something called Alpha Picks, where their picks actually outperform the S&P 500 by a fairly wide margin. So all 3 of those links are down in the description. So over the past 10 years, TQQQ has given you a total return of about 2,100%. So what does that look like compared to QQQ? Well, over the course of 10 years, if you were to invested $10,000 in these 2 funds, 10 years later, you would have $50,000 in QQQ and almost $200,000 in TQQQ. So an annualized or cumulative annual growth rate that would come out to be about 36% per year for TQQQ and 18% per year for QQQ. Now, if you recall, over on their website, they claimed a 3 times daily performance of the NASDAQ 100. However, here you can see the cumulative annual growth rate is only double, so 2 times its total overall performance. So that is something to consider when investing in this fund. But if you are a long-term holder for TQQQ, you would have had a significant outperformance holding this over the course of 10 years. But here is something else I wanted to highlight. If you recall, over on their website, they also said before fees and expenses, TQQQ's expense ratio is 0.88%, and on their website, they actually claim a gross expense ratio of close to 1%, and I believe that is taken out on a daily basis, averaged out over the whole year. Over the whole year, that's going to be close to a total of 1%. So that's going to be about $100 per year out of every $10,000 you have invested. So over the course of the year, that really pulls down the overall returns of TQQQ. Let's check out QQQ's Seeking Alphas page here. If we do the 10-year return, actually let's do the 5-year return. I just wanted to highlight something here. So around, let's say, November 30th of 2021, QQQ was sitting around $400. Here today, it's almost peaked to about $500. Here in the past few weeks, almost to $500. So that's about a 25% price increase compared to about almost 3 years ago. So you can see at the beginning of this year, it did blow through its all-time highs about 2 years ago, and it's been continuing to make some all-time highs over the course of 2024. But because of those fees and expenses, that's not the case for TQQQ. You can see the same peak happening at the end of 2021, where the price of TQQQ was almost topped to about $90 per share. And today, it has barely peaked to about $84, $85 per share and has not blown through its all-time highs or even 25% higher as QQQ has done. So you can see with those daily fees and expenses, it really does pull down their overall performance of TQQQ. And just consider if you were to have jumped into TQQQ at all-time highs, how that would have really crushed you over the past 2 to 3 years. So that brings me to my last point. Should you be buying TQQQ? I would say the first thing to consider is, are you comfortable with the large downsides to investing in TQQQ in a bear market? Are you going to be able to hold on for the long term of at least a minimum of 5 to 10 years to really be able to see that price performance excel and hit a couple bull markets to be able to really see those outsized returns? Are you going to be able to hold on when you see your portfolio or your unrealized gains take a hit? The next thing to consider is you might be only seeing a double return compared to a triple return that you might be expecting, whereas over the course of the past 10 years, you have a 36% return per year for TQQQ and an 18% return for QQQ. I would say if you are okay with the downsides for the short term and you are at a minimum looking for at least 10 to 20 years of market returns, and you feel bullish on the information technology sector, which is 50% of QQQ, then there should be no problem with TQQQ. Just consider this. This is my portfolio builder. This is my self-investor's workbook that I've put together. I do have video instructions for each of the spreadsheets that I feature. Today we're looking at the portfolio builder. So consider this: with a $25,000 initial deposit. So consider this: if you had $25,000 today invested into TQQQ at $74 per share, you'd have close to 337 shares. 10 years from now, if you didn't sell out, you would still have 337 shares. So if you were bullish on TQQQ, just remember 10 years from today, even if we didn't see a continued 36% return per year, you would still have 337 shares. So if you are bullish on the stock market over the long term, TQQQ should still outperform QQQ. However, if you did have a 36% return like we did the past 10 years, taking this into account, 10 years from now, with a 36% return at $500 a month and $25,000 initially in your account, your 337 shares would be around $800,000 to $900,000 in 10 years. If we were to change this figure up here, move it to 100% and not invest in TQQQ and just in QQQ with the same price performance over the past 10 years at 17.51%, you'd have 51 shares with this amount of money. And 10 years from now, you'd have close to $300,000 in QQQ. So head down into the comments and let me know what you think of this video. Can you stomach TQQQ over the long term, or do you feel more comfortable just investing in an unleveraged counterpart? And with that, thanks for watching.